friends and family. It's been a while. Sorry, been a little bit strapped with my new job, but still trying to keep the physical post up. Just haven't had as much time to prepare a video post. But today I thought we'd start the new year off, being as I had a 3-day weekend. So I did take some time, and today I bring you the message that I've titled Jesus the Real Vine Dresser, Fruitful and Blessed. Let me say that again without the tongue tied. Jesus the Real Vine Dresser, Fruitful and Blessed, which is based on John 15, chapter 15, verses 1 through 7. In that teaching, Jesus on the vine and the branches, it is unlike most of the parables, which most of us know. I mean, if you are following Christ and reading your Bible, you know that Jesus usually speaks in parables. So in the Gospels, this is a very unusual parable, because most parables are usually stories with one or more spiritual points being made. But in John 15, 1 through 17, Jesus extends the metaphor of the vine and draws our attention to a fruitful vine, and then provides two primary applications to us to learn from. So there's so much more dynamics in it. To sum up this approach, you might use the word polyism, and I might have pronounced that wrong, but don't shoot me, which is the Greek. In the Greek, would translate into something like the capacity for a word or phrase to have multiple meanings, usually related by contiguity of meaning with a semantic field. Obviously, you can tell that I looked that one up. These two, I mean, I knew there was a word for it. I just definitely had to do my research on that. So these two are very distinct, but related angles to a metaphor of a vine, are the pruning of the branches and the abiding in the vine. While in short, the pruning represents getting rid of which does not belong in kingdom living or in the lives of a believer. And then even another polysemy, as any gardener would know, allows new growth to spawn in the vine so that it is healthy and bears much fruit. And then the abiding side of the parable, which at its simplest means being connected to Jesus, but also being connected to one another as followers of Christ. So while these 17 verses are not very long, in fact, you can read them in just a matter of a minute or two, which we will read at the end of my talk, they contain some of the most important and beloved passages that are in the Bible about the disciples' love relationship with Jesus Christ and with one another, and his reciprocal love. But on the flip side, they also depict their true refinement in Christ, and how their relationship with Christ is essential as a lifeline. I mean, you've heard that game with, I think it used to be Regis, do you want a lifeline? Well, Jesus is the lifeline. So it depicts how Jesus is the essential lifeline to the apostles and to us for us to live out kingdom living and be effective for the kingdom. So again, keeping in line with the metaphor and speaking Gades, or I think I meant to say gardenese, which is not truly a word. After getting rid of the dead wood, the vine dresser gets down to exacting work of pruning each shoot or branch of the vine. The purpose of the pruning are to stimulate growth, allow the vine dresser to shape the vine, allow the vine dresser to produce maximum yield without breaking the branches with too many clusters for them to bear, to protect against mildew, to protect or produce better quality wine with more highly concentrated flavored grapes. So, of course, our Papa, a name I've come kind of fond of for God from a series of movies that I've watched over the years, does pruning in our lives too, so that you and I will become healthy and bear much spiritual fruit. So you may be spending lots of time in activities that, in God's view are fruitless. I can remember God telling me in numerous areas of my life to either stop doing things that did not honor Him or change my motivation for why I did certain things so that He would receive the glory. This was more of a reposturing of how I looked at things, like the time I spent mountain biking, and how that too could be a form of worship to my King if I simply changed my mindset and used that time to pray, to give Him the glory, for my skills and talent, to thank Him for that opportunity. It's just a different way of looking at things. Now, of course, if you are in an adulterous relationship, then just saying, "Oh Lord, we do this in honor of you." No. That is not the same thing. That would be the vine that He would snap off for the purpose of getting rid of the bad growth, the fungus, and so forth. Whereas changing the mindset on something that is glorifying to Him, say an activity or a talent that He has given you, and I am deviating from my notes, is definitely something, where He would trim so that we could grow in that new area, not for the purpose of trimming so that He could rid that bad sector of the vine. So, even sometimes we suffer losses and grieve about them, but find that God is redirecting and healing us. So, little by little, He is trimming and reshaping us and preparing us for new things, for greater things, whether it be that people hurt us, people let us down, we let ourselves down. We followed a path to where there was no way that we were going to prosper in the vine. But we can trust the vine dresser and must be obedient if we want His skill to make us whole and fruitful. And it is not just though we, who are technically considered the church, but from the context of corporate gathering and forsaking not the assembling of ourselves, aka our physical churches where we come together, they too need pruning. How many activities are continued because in the church the mindset is, well, we've always done that, long past the time when they, are effective in advancing the kingdom. So, if we're not growing as a body of believers and we're not placing an impact on the world with our gathering and what results from our gathering when we go off into the world individually, then there are probably some things not only in our own lives but in our church that need to be trimmed as well. Sometimes people need to be removed from leadership in the church because their ideals and their paths are no longer in line with God's kingdom calling. Some churches suffer severe injury because they tolerate the unspiritual control and direction of big givers. So they allow the big money to sort of dictate and cause the church to not really grow and not depend on God for their financial means, even though there's someone at the pulpit every day or every week telling you to rely on God. They wouldn't, if you sat in front of a pastor, they're not going to turn around and say, well, yeah, it's okay to go rob a bank or it's okay to get some dirty money. But in effect, when a church bows down, and I've seen it happen, to big tithers in the church, and tend to concede to them rather than being in union with Christ as, and God as the vine, whatever that word is, vine pruner, we'll call it. Things are definitely out of balance. So, some churches experience a painful time when a number of members leave over some issues, disagreements, and so forth. But when this loss is surrendered to God and forgiveness is sought, this pruning can become the impetus for new growth. So ultimately, trust the vine dresser, the word that I couldn't think of just a second ago, and be obedient. Don't prune rashly, but seek his season and his way. On closing, I would like to share these 17 verses because they are short, but they are powerful. And in case you just happen to be one of those people that won't take my advice and go listen to them yourself after this message, now you get to hear them. So let this word wash over you, and I pray for God to help you trust the ultimate vine dresser, and may your lives be both fruitful and blessed. In the GNT, the subtitle for this section is Jesus, the Real Vine. So it reads in verse 1, I am the real vine, and my Father is the gardener. He breaks off every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and he prunes every branch that does bear fruit, so that I will be clean and bear more fruit. You have been made, and he's speaking to the apostles, but he's speaking to us in a cascading standpoint. You have been made clean already by the teaching I have given you. Remain united to me, and I will remain united to you. A branch cannot bear fruit by itself. If you cut off a limb of a tree or a branch and you just kind of stick it over against the wall, it's just going to wither and die. So it obviously can't bear fruit on its own. It can only do so if it remains attached to the vine. In the same way, you cannot bear fruit unless you remain in me, meaning Jesus. Jesus, I am the vine, and you are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, will bear much fruit. For you can do nothing without me. Those who do not remain in me are thrown out like a branch and dry up. Such branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire, where they are burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, then you will ask for anything you wish, and you shall have it. My Father's glory is shown by your bearing much fruit, and in this way you become my disciples. I love you just as the Father loves me. Remain in my love. If you obey my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My commandment is this: love one another, just as I have loved you. The greatest love you can have for your friends is to give your life for them. And you are my friends if you do what I command. I do not call you servants any longer, because servants do not know what their master is doing. Instead, I call you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me. I chose you and anointed you to go and bear much fruit, the kind of fruit that endures. And so the Father will give you whatever you ask of him in my name. This, then, is what I command you: love one another. I'll close with emphasizing a few things that weren't specifically covered in my text. Yes, if you ask anything in his name, but if you do that in context of truly seeking God, then you're obviously going to ask things that are in his will. Obviously, if you ask something that is not in his will, like for a guy that you like who is going through marital problems to wind up getting a divorce, God is not going to answer that prayer. Now, their divorce may happen because of free will, but you can bet your bottom dollar God had nothing to do with that. Excuse me. And at the same time, do you notice how Jesus, and that's why I said that in my study, that the vines also represent the relationship that we have with one another. Do you notice how many times just in that short 1 through 17 verses, Jesus emphasizes love one another, not to mention how that is a pivotal message of his in all 4 of the Gospels, throughout the Gospels, and even hours before he went to the cross. And then again, restated by his apostles as a reminder to us in the epistles especially in 1 John 1, is significant evidence of that. But almost all of Paul's writings also support that. So love one another. If you accomplish nothing in 2021, find Jesus, remain in Jesus, and love one another. So blessed New Year to you all. Happy 2021. Know all the problems of 2020 did not just mystically disappear at the strike of midnight. But we can have newfound hope in knowing that Christ is on the throne, and that regardless of what we face in 2021, He is Lord, and His will be done. Be blessed, have an awesome day, and happy Sunday to you all, my friends. Goodbye.